So I'm sitting in the Jewish agency office, and the counselor looks at my application and goes, "Can you prove you're Jewish?" And I'm thinking, this is like being asked to prove I have brown eyes while someone is literally looking at my brown eyes. I want to say, well, I've been neurotic about everything since birth. I have strong opinions about bagel quality, and I feel guilty about things I haven't even done yet. What more evidence do you need? But apparently, my lifelong relationship with Jewish anxiety isn't sufficient documentation for Israeli immigration purposes. They want papers, official papers proving that I'm Jewish, which feels like needing a driver's license to prove I can walk. I know I'm Jewish the same way I know I'm lactose intolerant. It's been a defining feature of my existence for 35 years, but apparently, personal experience doesn't count as evidence. This is when I discover that being Jewish without paperwork is like being a spy without a cover story. Everyone can see what you obviously are, but you can't officially admit it because you don't have the right credentials. I'm basically in witness protection, except instead of hiding from criminals, I'm hiding from bureaucrats who need documentation to confirm the blindingly obvious. So I start the Great Jewish Documentation Hunt, which is like being a detective investigating my own identity. Except all the witnesses are either dead or in their 90s with questionable memories, and most of the evidence was destroyed by people who specifically wanted to eliminate evidence of Jewish identity. It's like trying to solve a murder, where the murderers also destroyed the crime scene, burned the police files, and probably killed the witnesses too. I call my 92-year-old Aunt Rose, who's my last hope for family information. "Aunt Rose, do you have any documentation proving we're Jewish?" And she laughs so hard I'm worried she's going to injure herself. "Documentation. David, darling, we're so Jewish that when I sneeze it sounds like oy vey. What documentation do you need? A receipt from God?" But that's exactly what I need. I need a receipt from God, or at least from a rabbi, or a synagogue, or someone with official letterhead who can confirm that yes, this family has been Jewish since the invention of guilt itself. Because apparently, decades of Jewish living isn't evidence enough. I need proof that I've been Jewish, like I'm trying to return something to a store without a receipt. The genealogical research is absolutely mental. I'm paying someone to investigate whether my own grandmother was actually Jewish, like I'm trying to verify if she really existed. The researcher calls me with updates. "Good news, David. I found a record of your grandmother complaining about the synagogue heating in 1953. This confirms she was both Jewish and appropriately dissatisfied with community amenities." But here's the really fun part, the DNA testing. I spit in a tube and send it off, hoping my saliva will reveal what my family's oral history apparently can't prove. It's like taking a genetic lie detector test about my own identity. "Your DNA results are in, David. You're 47% Ashkenazi Jewish, 12% neurotic European, and 3% lactose intolerant. Congratulations, you're documentably Jewish adjacent." Except DNA isn't actually sufficient for Aliyah purposes. It's just supporting evidence, like having a character witness who can testify that yes, you do indeed look Jewish enough to be Jewish. The Israeli government apparently needs more than genetic proof. They need paperwork proof, because genetics can lie, but synagogue membership records are eternal. My friend Sarah finds this situation hilarious. "So you need to prove you're something you've never doubted you were, to people who should probably be able to tell just by looking at you?" And yes, that's exactly it. I need to provide documentation for something that's as obvious as my height, but significantly more bureaucratically complicated. The community testimony requirement is particularly surreal. I have to ask people to write letters confirming that I'm Jewish, like I'm applying for a job where the main qualification is ethnic authenticity. To whom it may concern, I have known David for 15 years, and I can confirm that he is authentically Jewish. He shows up late to everything, complains about the weather regardless of what it's like, and makes excellent chicken soup. His Jewish credentials are unquestionable. Mrs. Goldstein from my synagogue writes me a beautiful letter, but I can tell she thinks I've completely lost my mind. David, dear, of course you're Jewish. You've been coming to services for years, you know all the prayers, and you argue with the rabbi about politics. Who else would do that? But apparently, obvious Jewish behavior isn't legally binding evidence. The conversion option is the ultimate bureaucratic irony. I can prove I'm Jewish by becoming Jewish. Again, it's like needing to retake a driver's test to prove you can drive while sitting in your own car. Well, Mr. Cohen, since you can't prove you're Jewish, would you like to become Jewish? It's only a 2-year process of studying to become something you already are. I'm explaining this to my therapist, and she goes, "So you're having an identity crisis about an identity you're certain of? Because you need documentation to prove something you've never questioned." And that's exactly it. I'm experiencing bureaucratic gaslighting about my own ethnic background. The Holocaust angle makes everything even more complicated. My family's documentation was probably destroyed along with the communities that created it, which means I'm being asked to provide evidence that was systematically eliminated by people who specifically wanted to erase Jewish identity. It's like being asked for a receipt for something that was stolen from you by professional receipt destroyers. I'm spending hours researching destroyed Jewish communities in Eastern Europe, trying to find any trace of my great-grandfather's synagogue attendance. I'm literally searching for evidence of Jewish identity in places where being Jewish was a death sentence. It's like trying to find snowflakes in a bonfire. The very thing I'm looking for was specifically targeted for elimination. But the absolute pinnacle of bureaucratic absurdity is when they suggest I provide cultural documentation of my Jewish lifestyle. So now I'm photographing my mezuzah, my Hanukkah decorations, and my collection of Jewish cookbooks as evidence that I'm Jewish. I'm basically creating a visual portfolio of my ethnic authenticity. Exhibit A, photo of David lighting Shabbat candles. Exhibit B, David's extensive collection of Jewish guilt literature. My wife finds me cataloging our Jewish ritual objects like they're evidence in a court case. "What are you doing now?" she asks. "I'm documenting our Jewish lifestyle for immigration purposes," I tell her. Apparently, being Jewish isn't enough. I need to prove I'm Jewish enough, with photographs. The DNA relative matching is like speed dating for genealogy. I'm reaching out to third cousins I've never met, asking if they have any documentation about our shared great-great-grandmother. "Hi, cousin. We share 2.3% DNA and possibly a Jewish ancestor. Do you happen to have any synagogue records from 1890s Poland? This is totally normal, right?" Some relatives are helpful. Others think I'm running some sort of elaborate genealogical scam. But there is something weirdly bonding about collective Jewish documentation panic. We've created a family WhatsApp group dedicated to sharing random bits of evidence about our shared Jewish heritage. Found a photo of Great Uncle Moish at a Passover Seder. Could this help anyone's immigration case? The professional genealogist I hire listens to my requirements and nods knowingly. Ah, yes, the Jewish identity verification research. Very common these days. Very common. There are enough people trying to prove their obvious Jewish identity to constitute a recognizable genealogical crisis category. But here's the thing that really gets me. I'm paying money to investigate whether I'm something I've never doubted being. It's like hiring a detective to confirm that my hair is brown or that I prefer coffee to tea. I know who I am, my family knows who I am, my community knows who I am, but apparently that's not enough for governmental purposes. The irony is that I'm trying to prove my Jewish identity to immigrate to a Jewish state where I'll immediately join a community of people who are also struggling with various levels of Jewish authentication. It's like joining a club for people who can't quite prove they qualify for the club they're already in. After 6 months of genealogical research, DNA testing, community testimonies, and cultural documentation, I've basically become an expert on my own ethnic background. I know more about proving Jewish identity than most rabbis. I could teach a masterclass. Advanced identity verification. How to prove you are who you know you are. But there's something oddly satisfying about the whole process. Sure, it's bureaucratically insane, but I've learned more about my family history than I ever knew before. I've connected with distant relatives, discovered family stories, and built a comprehensive understanding of my Jewish heritage that goes far beyond what I had before this documentation crisis began. When I finally submit my application, it's basically a thesis on my Jewish authenticity, complete with DNA results, community testimonies, cultural evidence, and a detailed family history that reads like a very boring novel about Eastern European Jewish survival. I'm not just applying for Aliyah, I'm submitting a comprehensive academic paper on the topic of why David Goldberg is definitely Jewish despite bureaucratic evidence requirements. My dad looks at the finished documentation package and shakes his head. You wrote a book to prove you're Jewish so you can move to Israel? And yes, that's exactly what I did. I've created a scholarly work on Jewish identity verification that would qualify for peer review. The Goldberg Paradox, a case study in proving obvious ethnic authenticity to skeptical government officials. Though I do wonder what happens if my application gets approved. Will I get a certificate confirming that I'm officially Jewish? Will there be a ceremony? Congratulations, David. After extensive investigation, we can confirm that you are indeed what you always knew you were. Here's your official Jewish person license, valid for international use. At this point, I'm probably the most thoroughly documented Jewish person in history. I don't just practice Judaism, I practice it with comprehensive evidence that would convince even the most skeptical immigration officer that yes, I am authentically, documentably, internationally certified Jewish, despite lacking the traditional paperwork that most people take for granted. And honestly, after proving my Jewish identity to this degree, I feel like I've earned the right to be as Jewish as I want, wherever I want. I'm not just making Aliyah based on inherited Jewish identity. I'm making Aliyah with a comprehensive dossier that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that I am exactly as Jewish as I've always known myself to be, just with significantly more paperwork to prove it.